So Ielts speaking section is the same for both academic and general module, and usually it lasts starting from 11 and to 30 minutes. Also, it consists of 3 parts, and you're going to be interviewed by examiner alone. So it means that you're not going to sit with other candidates. So everything will be individually, and your conversation is also going to be recorded, and you're going to be graded as a whole, which means that you're not going to receive separate marks for all 3 parts. Okay, let's turn to part 1. So duration of part 1 is going to be approximately 4 and 5 minutes, and during this time, examiner asks you questions based on personal information and everyday topics. And these topics can be about area you live, hometown, traveling, studies, spare time, family, friends, and so on. And all topics that you may be asked about earlier, and so be prepared for that. And during this task, you should show that you can understand the questions and you can answer them accordingly. And it will be relatively easy, and you know what to expect more or less. So you don't have to worry about part 1. Okay, let's move on to part 2. In part 2, you're going to be given a card with questions by your examiner. It will look like this. Okay, this is a topic that you could be asked about in part 2. Let's read it. Describe a book that you read recently. You should say what the book is about, what you liked or disliked about it, would you recommend it to anyone else, or what kind of person would that be. You will have 1 minute to think about the topic, and the examiner will give you some pen and paper so you can use them to prepare and make some notes during the time. The examiner will indicate when you can start talking, so you don't have to worry about that. You should talk about the topic asked on the card, and while you do so, you should answer to all questions, all these points over here. If you just pay attention to our card, you can see 4 questions, like what the book, and then what you like it, and the third one is what you recommend, and the last one is here, like what kind of person would that be. Actually, you should, during your speaking, you should cover all these 4 questions. So, all in all, it will be a short monologue since you are required to talk continuously for about 2 minutes, and this part of speaking section tests your ability to talk fluently and about a certain topic in an organized way. An examiner may ask you some questions as you finish your speaking. So, be prepared for that and be flexible. Okay, now let's move on to part 3. In part 3, the examiner will take into account the questions you are asked in part 2, and he will ask you questions related to the topic but on a broader aspect. The questions in part 3 are going to be a little bit more abstract or general, similar to the questions you would receive in your writing task 2. Okay, let's see some examples. Now about part 3, these are some questions you could be asked. Let's read them. Do you think that the development of technology will obliterate traditional books and reading? Do you think that tablets will eventually replace traditional books? Do you think that reading books is still popular among young people? Now, if you remember, in part 2, the topic question was about a book you have read recently, right? So, as you can see here, you will get some general questions, but in relation to books and technology, a little bit more difficult questions and more abstract. As you can understand, in this part, you should be able to express your opinions fluently and justify them with a wide range of vocabulary, pretty much like writing. A discussion will follow between you and the examiner, in which the examiner wants to see that you can analyze your ideas and defend your arguments. These are the basics of what you are to expect in all 3 parts of Ielts speaking section, and good luck with your exam.